Hi, Stampers. This is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome. I don't have anything for you. Normally, I go live every Monday and Thursday here at 2:30 Mountain Time to show you guys usually a card, but today we're going to be making a flip top box that's going to hold a wine bottle. So let's see. So this is it right here. This is what we're making in today's live. We're using the Bottled Happiness bundle today, and actually all week. So that's this stamp set right here. And then it comes with a coordinating punch. And so this is a great bundle because it's only $37, which is, 37 and change, which is a really good price point. And so I wanted to show you it in the catalog. It's in our annual catalog on page 16. And like I said, it's the stamp set and the punch, but then they have some additional pieces that I wanted to point out because they're not real obvious. But this is a 3D bubble. We've done this before with the snow globe, and there was a gumball machine. There's a jar. There's several different things that have had these little bubbles that you can use to put things in. So here they've put in this little note in a bottle, which is super cute. And then they also have these effervescent elements. And so these are just little bubbles that are supposed to, or little balls that are supposed to look like bubbles. So they're really super cute. And I wanted to make sure and point them out because they get a little bit lost up in this corner. And I wanted to make sure you guys don't miss them. So we're going to be using this bundle. We're going to be making that box, and there we go. This is the designer series paper that I'm going to be decorating the outside of the box in today. On my other one, I used one of our Christmas sets out of the mini catalog, but today we're going to be using one of the freebies because we only have about a month left of our freebies, and one has already run out. Our note cards, the pool party and soft seafoam, this one's already run out. And I have a feeling this might be the next to run out because this has been really popular too. So I don't want you guys to miss out. I want you to see all the cool things that we can do with it. So for today's project, we're going to make this box. Okay, now it looks daunting, but I'm going to try to make it easy for you. Let me grab my pieces. And my notes off the printer, because we all know that I start misquoting things when the camera turns on. So we're going to need one piece of cardstock that is 7.5 by 11. So we're just cutting off this 1-inch strip on that side. So we're going to need that one. Then we have one that's 7.5 by 7.5. This one is 3.5 by 8 3/8. And then this one's 3.5 by 3.5. And I have a feeling, because this is a little on the complicated side as far as mapping everything out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create templates, drawn in Canva that I can load for you guys. And then I'm going to probably make a written tutorial that you can print off that would have all the pictures and everything you need to make this easy to do. Because I know printed PDFs are preferred when things get a little on the dicey side for you, those of you who are a little intimidated by things. So I'm going to start out with my main piece, and that was the 7.5 by 11. And we're going to score this one. And so I'm going to put the short side across the top, and then we're going to score at 2.5, and then again at 5. So you want to be thinking about this, that it's going to be 2.5 by 2.5. These are all 2.5s. Okay, so this is going to help keep you oriented when we get all these pieces out. Okay, I'm going to spin this to the long side, and we're going to go 2.5, 7.5, and then 9.5. And then we're going to spin this back up to the short side. And this is where my little sections are. Remember, this is going to be either the top or bottom. It's our 2.5 by 2.5. So that's going to stay the way it is. So the shorter pieces are going to be our mechanism. So we want the 2 shorter pieces up here. And then we're going to go with the 5.5 down to the second score line and the 2 down to the second score line. Okay. So that's going to be our first one. We're going to take the 7.5 by 7.5. Now this won't matter because it's square, which one's across the top. So just pick one. And then we're going to do this one at 2.5 and 5. And we're going to flip it and do another one at 2.5. Now boxes are one of the times that I really, really recommend that you get our Simply Scored tool, which is what I'm working with here, because it's very easy to just shift a little bit when you're using the scoring tool on your trimmer. And we want to make sure that you're very accurate when you score things. And as long as we're, square up here in the corner, our measurements are down to 1/8 of an inch accuracy. So it's just takes out a lot of frustration if you have the Simply Scored tool. Let me see where it would be in here. Probably should have looked that up before I open my big mouth. Tools, cutting and scoring, 155. So here we go. Here's our Simply Scored tool right here. It's on page 155 of our catalog. And I highly, highly recommend this. And then up here, I've got it taped shut because I always store mine on my side, but there's a little opening where you can flip this part open and it stores things. And what it stores is the little markers that you can put in here. If you're going to be mass producing something and you want to have reminders of where you're cutting, or maybe you're just more comfortable putting them out there before you start scoring. Those are all locked in there. Sorry, it's taped shut. Or I would mess with it. But I know we want to move on with our card. So we have more pieces. Our 3.5 by 3.5, we're just going to score 1/2 an inch on all sides. So we're going to just be rotating this around and doing 1/2 of an inch on all 4 sides. Then we're going to take this one. I'm going to put the 3.5 up at the top, and I'm going to go at 3 and then at 1/2. So that's making this section in the middle our 2.5. Remember, that's our common measurement throughout this whole thing. Okay, then I'm going to turn it on its long side, and we're going to go 2.5 and 4.5. All righty, so that's all of our scoring. Now we're going to need to do some cutting. So let's start with the bottom. I'm going to grab my paper snips, and we're just going to, let's do this first. Well, I think if I score them, they're going to, or burnish them, it's going to be a whole lot easier for you to see my score lines. Because what I want to do is make all the sides little flaps. And so to do that, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do a tiny little wedge right here, removing this score line. And then I'm going to snip it a little on the outside. Okay, so we're basically removing the score line and just a titch to each side just to give us some playroom. It's probably not totally necessary, but it makes it easier when we line things up. So it's going to look like this. And what this is the insert on the inside of our box. This is what's going to hold our bottle. So this is going to set inside the middle in there. You see that there? So what I did was I found one of our circle dies that was the right size to slip over it. Okay, and then I cut a circle right out of the middle of this. So now this is going to fit right onto here. So I'm going to take some liquid glue. I'm going to put it on the little flaps. And then we're just going to fold in and try to make this square. So I'm lining up the edge of my paper with the score line. And that's why I'm using liquid, because I want some time to really finagle this to make sure that I am indeed square. Okay, so that's going to be inside. That's going to hold the bottle inside the box. Haven't lost anybody yet, right? Everybody think it's pretty simple so far? Okay. Now we have these other pieces. So this one, this is actually the front of our box. This is this section from here down to the bottom. So this piece right here is what we're working on with this piece, because all of our other ones, these only cover 3 sides. This is going to be the 4th. Now, remember, I said we want to keep in mind that this 2.5 by 2.5 is going to be the bottom or the top. So we want that to be just a flap. So I'm going to cut those off. I'm going to cut these off. And then I'm going to take a big wedge out of here. And you'll see why that has to be a big wedge in a little bit. Because it's going to kind of be at an angle. So we want that to not impede by touching that. Okay, yeah. Prize Patrol, thank you for reminding everybody. Type in hashtag Prize Patrol for your chance to win one of these, which I'll probably have to send flat. But you'll have the video to put it together. Maybe I'll make the prize a tutorial. You would win the tutorial for this because it's kind of funky to mail. I didn't even think about that. But a written PDF tutorial would be good, right? Okay, now for this one, we're just going to remove the score line. And what I mean by that is I want to just shimmy up this one side of this score line and then the other side of the score line with our paper snips. And I'm just pulling that out. Okay, so we're just removing a little thin piece. So this is what we're looking for. See, then it'll be able to go together like that. So that's 2 of our pieces. then this top one. Now, I don't want you confused. We're going to go about this slow. I'm going to go ahead and burnish my score lines. Okay. So we want, this is going to be the reverse of this one. So the bottom part, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to remove these score lines. And I have to try to remind myself to snip this off. When I tear it, I don't know, there's a little bit of extra fibers at the end, which I don't want, and the scissors clipping it off makes it much cleaner. So I try to remember to come back and snip instead of tear. Okay, now this top part, we don't need these big squares at all. Okay, those are going to go away. Hi, Jennifer. Okay, so this one's going away, and then this one's going away. Okay, so we have that. Then I'm going to remove this little one. So we kind of did a stair step. You follow me? We did both big ones and then just one little one. And then these are going to become flaps. And so to become flaps, that's when we do this little wedge on the side. So there we go. There's our big scary one. Have I scared anybody yet? There it is. Lost my 3x3 or 3.5 by 3.5. Okay. Now, you saw my box is slanted, right? So you're wondering how we're going to go about doing that. Well, I'm going to show you. We're going to take our pieces and we're going to lay them down with the 2.5 over here on our, I've got my measurements down here. Okay, so I'm going to lay it on my grid paper and I'm going to find 4.5. So I want 4.5 on both sides. Come on, stay straight. And I'm going to take a pencil and we're going to make a little mark. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I want my 2.5-inch flap over on that side. I'm going to find 4.5 on both sides and make a little mark. Okay, then I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer and we're going to go from this upper corner to that little mark. So see my mark is right here. I'm going to put that in the track. I'm going to put this upper corner in the track. And then I'm going to cut between the two of them. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, upper corner, and then my little mark. Okay. Then I want the same thing on this one. I'm basically mimicking this idea that I want those trimmed off. But this is kind of in the way. So we want to fold this down and these either up or in, but we want all these little pieces out of the way. Okay. And then I'm going to put my mark here, and then we're going to go from that upper corner. This is why I had to fold these pieces kind of out of the way, because we're going to cut from the little mark to the upper corner, just like we did on the bottom. Okay. So now we're all cut and scored. I told you this is going to be the front of our box. So it needs the opening for our wine to go through. And the tutorial I followed from, it was Stampin' Magic. She was somebody overseas, Terry Pocock. I can't remember, but she used our old retired ovals to cut this out. I didn't have ovals. And so I had to kind of cheat. And so what I did was I took our circle that we used for the bottom and I cut out a circle, and then I moved it down and I cut out another circle. So I ran it through the die cutting machine twice, and then I'm just going to snip off this little pointy part in the middle. So I kind of have an elongated oval. That's going to be my opening. If you have the oval dies, fabulous. If you don't, you can do it the way I did and use the circle twice to make your inside. Okay, now we're kind of ready to start gluing together. Is that exciting? So this part, this is, okay, this is the bottom part. Okay, so this is 3 flaps on the bottom. This is going to be my 4th, which means these pieces are going to go here and these 2 are going to go here. Okay, you following me here? So this is going to make it the 4 sides. And then this is going to be the top half here. And then we're going to put these 3 and that little short one together, and that's going to make our top. Now I agree this is not quite big enough, you know, but by the time we bury it in the middle, we're not going to notice that one's a little short. Yeah, kind of puzzle pieces, but I don't want you guys to get intimidated. I just want you to think about it kind of logically, that that's going to be our top and this is going to be our bottom. Okay, and then we just have our, this is a little section in the front. This is the little section in the back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and adhere this on this diagonal piece, right like that. That's why this had to have that big wedge. Remember when I said if you do it too small, it's not going to work? That's because when we fold it up, we don't want to run into that corner over here. So you could do this with liquid glue, or you can do it with tear and tape. But I basically want to put this straight line on that score line. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I want this straight line on that score line. Now, if you want to, there's the option of decorating all your panels now. while it's nice and flat. Some people prefer to take all their designer series paper and all their little pieces and put that on now. That's up to you. You can do that now, or you can do it after it's put together when it might make more sense as to what's the top and what's the bottom. Up to you. Let's go ahead and do this one. So I'm making it touch up here and then putting that straight line on that score line. Did I lose anybody so far? I'm trying to watch the comments and also not lose my place. So if you have any questions whatsoever, let me know and I'll stop. That's the beauty of being here live, is you can say, wait, and I will slow down and explain. Okay, so again, that straight line on the score. Straight line on the score. The beauty of liquid, you can reposition it a little. Okay, now I want to remember to stick my little insert in there. Okay, so I'm going to stick it in like that with my little 1/2 inch going down. That should slide right inside. That's why it's good to do this when we have our liquid glue on here, so we can make sure it slides in. Okay, then we're going to fold up the bottoms all the way in. Okay, so I'm going to just take 2 of them and I'm going to put my adhesive. Let's see, I think I want to do this one. And then this one, and then I'm going to do this one last because I want this smooth one, smooth one without the cut on the front. Doesn't technically matter how those all go down, but I like the smooth edge on the front. Okay, we just want those flaps all folded in. So now our wine bottle will slide right in there. Okay, almost there. That might be a good thing for the template, for me to put it together with different size panels. That's a good idea, Janet. Okay. Now this one, remember we wanted the 3 panels down again. So I'm going to take this and that one. And I'm getting them kind of wet because I want to include this one. And I want to sandwich it in between. I don't know if that's making sense. I want this one right here. Okay. Okay, so I've just got my short little flap attached in there. And then I'm going to put the side over it so we're burying that little one in the middle. So nobody knows that side didn't fit. I mean, it fits, but you know what I mean. We're burying the little piece. Then all we have to do is close the top flap. With the cards, I have my camera at the same height as when I do cards, and I guess it's because this is taller, it's like messing with me. Okay, now these pieces right here are going to go right here. Okay, that's going to be the back of my box. Okay, so that's it. That's the basic mechanism of how the cardboard all goes together and how we get that side slant. Okay, so that's one part. Now you're asking me, how are we going to do this with the designer series paper? Well, it's the same kind of idea. What I did is I have some designer series paper. I have top and bottom, and then the front and the back. So those are going to be here and here. That's these two pieces, which are 2 3/8. Everything is 2 3/8 inch wide. So that's how I started. I cut all my designer series paper into strips of 2 3/8. And then this one is 1 7/8 tall. And then this one's 2 3/8 because it's perfectly square, remember? Then I wanted the top and the bottom to be different. So I'm just flipping 2 of them. Okay. Then we have the front and the back of the box. Just lost my stack. Okay, so there's 6 of these. So there's my 2 straight pieces. Okay. This one's going to flip. Now let's get these out of the way. I want my print on the bottom. So this is going to go here. And then I'm going to take my reverse of it. And we'll put this one over here. Okay. Then we're going to do top and bottom. Again, I want this like muted thing on the top and my pattern birds on the bottom. Okay, now these ones are going to be easy because they're nice and straight, right? There's no cutting. But this is the top of the box, so I want the top to be my muted section. So I'm going to put that there. And then my pattern one on the bottom back here. Okay, so now we're left with these sides. Those are the ones with the angles. Okay, I know I need 2 for the top and I need 2 for the bottom, but they're going to go in an angle. So I know this one is going to have to be cut this direction. And then this one, this direction. Okay, so basically that means I'm going to take the 2 wrong sides together, like sewing. Put the 2 wrong sides together. And then we're going to make our mark. And so on these, I'm going to come up from the bottom 1 7/8. Remember, this was 1 7/8 here. So we're going to make this part match. We want the 1 7/8 here, right? So where'd my ruler go? Now on our little ruler that I like that has the little 1/8 inch marks, the 1/8 inch is going to be in between. White. Here we go. It's the little dotted line. Those are our 1/8. Okay, so it's not the 1 3/4. It's one little titch past it or one little titch under. So we're taking that one and I've marked it. And then I'm going to cut from that little mark to this corner. Okay, I got my birds going right side up. I'm going to go from here to there. My little score lines right there. There we go. Okay, so my cut is on the longer side, if that makes sense. I would not want to cut this way. I don't want the short cut. I want the long cut. So there's that one. And there's that one. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing for the top. Sorry. Buried my pieces. Now this time I want the muted side out. So I'm going to kind of set them on the side of my box and tell myself that this section has to be the shorter, the 1 7/8. Okay, so I'm going to sandwich them together. And I want my 1 7/8 in here. Okay, so I've got both of them. Wrong sides together. And then I don't want to do this. That's going to be the short side. I don't want to do that. I want to go the long distance. And I point that out because that's something that often gets misunderstood, is what direction we need to cut things in. And it's important because the bottom one had directionals, and so we couldn't flip it around without messing up our pattern. So now we're ready to decorate the sides with that and with this. Oh, I guess I could erase my pencil mark now that we're done. Okay. What did I do? Oh, look at that. What am I doing? Okay. See? I have to watch myself because these are exactly the same size and I use the same designer series paper, which messed me up a little there. I had to make sure that my ones on the bottom, the birds are upright, because when I had this one down here, I had one of them down there. See, if I took the ones from the top and put it down here, the birds are upside down. So if you use different designer series paper, you won't have that issue. When I did this one, what's on the reverse of this is different than what's on, these aren't the same sheet. Does that make sense? And I didn't have that issue. So good thing I was paying attention. Yep, those are birds right side up. So who thinks they can do this one? I know a lot of you looked at the pictures ahead of time and went, oh my gosh, there's no way I could do that. But I think you can. You just have to go kind of slowly and methodically. And I'm willing to do up a PDF tutorial to sell if you guys want that. So there's our box. Now I want to decorate it. And so that's when the stamp set comes in. There we go. So I'm going to grab some paper. And I had used very vanilla here. This time I'm going to use white. So I need a piece for the bottom here. That'll work. And then I need this for the top. So what I did there was I used these rectangle dies from the Scalloped Contours. And I used this second one up. So I kind of lie that down and go, okay, that's about how wide the paper needs to be for me to feed it through the die cutting machine. So 3 1/4 by 2. Big old stack of plates over here. And these two, the gray ones, are for embossing. You can see the little embossing folder on there, so I don't need either of those. I just need 1 and 2. So there's 1, and there's 2, and here's a second 2. Now the reason I chose this one and how I did the little ribbon kind of thing is when this die cuts, it cuts slits on the side. Now it leaves the corners on, so it's not going to go anywhere. But I thought, well, let's take advantage of that little pass through and take some cardstock and feed it through. Isn't that kind of cute? So let's go back to our Night of Navy. Find a little scrap. That looks about right. Now you can either do this with scissors or you can do it with our little banner punch. But this is 1 inch wide, so it's going to fit the outside edge. I push it all the way through and then make sure that it's hitting even on the back. That's going to flag that end. I guess we ought to see how long this needs to be. Come on. I'm just measuring it up down here to see what I did. I cut it at 2 1/2 and then I flagged either side. So that makes sense since the box was 2 1/2 by 2 1/2, cubic. When I put this in here, and snip the ends off, that's what's going to make it not quite touch. Yikes. Okay. So there we go. There's the little flag that's going to scoot back there. And that's not totally necessary. It was just a little bit of an accent I thought could be cute. If you don't want to do that part, you don't have to. We needed the sending cheer from the bottom. So I'm going to use my double oval punch for that. Punch that out. And then I'm going to save this piece for our label that's going to go on the wine bottle. Need another scrap to make the mat for that oval. And then we're ready to stamp. So here's our stamp set. And I thought this would be cute since we're working with wine, right? That we use the wine bottle. This is a two-step stamping. And so there's the two bottles. And then there's the little wine knot. And we can choose to use the knot or not. You don't have to. Okay, I'm just checking for questions. Sorry if I got quiet there for a minute. Okay, so here's going to be our label. And then the words that go on our label. We've got our two wine bottles, the solid and then the outline. And then I've got our little cork. Yeah, you may want to rewatch it. Being able to rewind and pause might be helpful. Nancy said it'd have to be someone she really, really likes. And they get so much easier. After you do the first one, it breaks down and gets easier. It starts making more logical sense. That's how my brain works. It has to be logical. Okay, for the bottle, I'm using Old Olive. And then we'll use Night of Navy for our words. And then our label and cork can be Crumb Cake. Well, it's a little bit dark. I wonder if it'll go again. That's almost a little light. Well, let's go with it. I kind of like it, especially since we're working in white. So this one I'm just fussy cutting because it's nice and simple. And we wanted our words to go on it. And I started saying that it has the wine knot, and we can angle over here at the side and try to pick up just the wine. Now, if it had picked up on the knot at all, we can come back and we can clean that off with a little baby wipe, but I think we have it. Yep, that did it. So we have wine and then our bottle. Oh, I need that again. And I'm going to do the bottle first to make sure I have room for the cork because I don't want them to overlap. Okay, let's ink this up. stamp off and then on. Then I can take this one and make it full strength. Sometimes I worry if I'm getting the right angle to get that layered on properly when I'm not looking straight down on it. When you're trying to line up one stamp over the other, unless you're using a Stamparatus, to line it up, you want to look straight down from the top. That's going to give you the best view for exactly how it's going to line up. And then I can put my little cork down here at the bottom. And we can add our label. Nope, wrong way. This way. I was looking at the back because what I wanted to do was watch that I had the thing centered. And then I'm going to put my adhesive back here to adhere it to our bottle. So my going over it's going to ensure that that stays in the middle. Okay. So there's that part, and then we have our bottom. So for that, I'm going to use Sending Cheer, which is another little stamp out of this set. Come on, let go. Stick into my finger. Okay. Trying to get it to line up on the line of the designer series paper. Doesn't want to let go of my finger. Okay, well, we're off a little. Okay. Okay. I'm going to pop up over into my stash over here and find some clear rhinestones. And for that, you want to take your pick tool. You can see I'm out of putty. So I'm going to give that a twist, and then it'll make some pop out. Oop, and it's continuing to ooze, so I want to back it off a touch so that it doesn't have that pressure into it. So see, now it's stopped. Because as long as it has that constant pressure, it's going to continue to ooze, and we don't want it to do that. But it makes it so easy to put these little rhinestones on, because you just push down on the top and then slide. Push down on the top, slide. Push down on the top, slide. And there we go. So there's our little wine box. So thank you for hanging out with me. It's been almost an hour. I know you've been waiting for Prize Patrol. I'm going to remember to spin that this week. And I also have next week's card, or next Thursday's card. So Thursday, we're still going to be playing with this set. We're going to make this card here. Now you could also do this with the bubble, the little plastic piece I was showing you could purchase and put the little fizz gems in it. But I couldn't find my little plastic pieces. So I don't know what I did with them. They got to be here somewhere because I wouldn't have bought the bubbles without the pieces, right? But this one opens up and has the gift card on the inside. So we'll be working with that on Thursday. And then also on my blog this week will be one of these, because this is the punch back here out of the same color. And then a tag. And then this one here has that extra flap that tucks behind the little circle. And that one holds it shut. So lots of things you can do with this little bottled happiness bundle. And now Prize Patrol. Has everybody got their name in there? Did you do hashtag Prize Patrol to make sure that you're in there? I'll go ahead and add that. There we go. And I think we're ready to spin. It may take me a couple days to put the PDF tutorial together, but we'll do that, and then that will be what the winner gets. There we go. Nancy's our winner. Congratulations. So give me a little bit to put the tutorial together. I'll take some pictures of the various parts and get my graphics done for the sketches, and I will pop that over in the email to you. So make sure you go into the Prize Patrol claim form and make sure I have your email address. You may have filled it out before, or I may have it somewhere in my records, but I want to make sure that I do have it. So anybody who wins goes to queenbeecreation.net/prize patrol, and that's where you give me the information on where to send your prize. So congratulations, Nancy. Thank you to everyone who joined me in the making of our adorable little box. Let's get rid of this. Hang on. Remove. There you go. Now you can see the box. Our little flip top box to hold our wine bottle. Thanks for joining me. Bye.